So, thank you very much for joining us this evening. This is about the third or fourth year we've run these club secretary inductions, and certainly from my perspective, it's always an enjoyable session to run. It's a good opportunity to get to know some of the new club secretaries out there, but also just talk about what it takes to run a grassroots football club and to kind of talk you through what is absolutely one of the most crucial roles I think, in that grassroots football community. So give you hopefully a bit of an understanding about what you've let yourself in for, signing up for this role as club secretary, but also how we as a county FA and as the wider FA can support you going forward. So there's a couple of bits we're going to cover today. I'm first of all just going to briefly touch on the role of the county FA, just so you get an understanding of who we are and how we can help you out. We're then going to look through that role of the secretary across three different levels within the club, so roles and responsibilities to members and to make sure that the club is running itself in a smooth manner. The relationship then with the league, which is an absolutely critical relationship and partnership that the clubs and leagues have, and then the relationship with the county FA, as I say, kind of how we're here to help you, but also a little bit of kind of where we see that relationship working and our kind of expectations of that club-county relationship. I'll then do a little bit around FA technology and we'll finish with a Q&A at the end. So that first aspect then, the role of the county FA. County FAs are effectively central to the grassroots football pyramid. We've got an intricate and well-established relationship with the FA, who can kind of sit above us, but then also working with the leagues and the clubs that affiliate to us. And really that relationship goes across all different aspects of that pyramid. Just to put it in a bit of context, there's 50 county FAs across the country, each performing the same role in their local area. That includes, I think, 3 services. So RAF, Navy and Armed Forces, Army all have their own FAs, as well as a couple of kind of more historic counties that may no longer exist politically, but are still there as county football associations. So our relationship with the FA is twofold. One, we're delegated responsibility and authority from them to look after grassroots football. And in return, what I think is equally important is we then have responsibility to represent the local interests of our clubs and leagues up to the FA through the various kind of projects we collaborate on, working groups, initiatives, and so forth. At a local level, then, we support volunteers within the leagues and the clubs. So any league that has the majority of clubs from Berks and Bucks will sanction to us, and any club whose primary home ground is based within Berkshire, Buckinghamshire, will affiliate to us as a county. Obviously, clubs can play in leagues from other counties and national leagues, as it were, but we still have that responsibility to look after those member clubs of the county FA, which is where you are all involved. Obviously, that club league link is critical because the leagues are the ones that are putting on football pretty much week in, week out. We then will help if there's ever a breakdown in that relationship. So if there's disputes that come up, or if there are decisions that the league's taken that the club wishes to appeal, as a sanctioning authority for the league, we will then support that process, take a look at the decisions that's been taken, and through an independent appeal board, pass down a judgment and kind of find a way forward. So to say, we're kind of central cog within that machinery, working closely with all other partners across the grassroots football pyramid. That's enough about us, though. On to you, onto the role of the secretary. So put it down in a brief and snappy 3-liner there, and the role in a nutshell. So the club secretary is the primary administrator and the main point of contact for people both within and outside the club on just about every aspect of the club's activities. So what this means is that as the club secretary, you are the central point of contact. You'll need to be across all different aspects of the club's operations, have those strong relationships with all of your internal and external stakeholders, and need to know the club inside and out. It's very much like a company secretary if you come from a corporate background, or almost like the chief executive. You may not be the one that is primarily leading on every aspect, but really you need to have an understanding of those how the club is operating, the machinery, and actually who that point of contact would be if an issue does come in that you can't deal with. You're able to kind of pull the relevant people and stakeholders within the club to be able to resolve the problem. So as I said, we're going to look across those 3 aspects. the role within the club, the relationship with the league, and then the relationship with the county. So we're going to come on first of all to the role within the club. As I say, it's equivalent almost to a company secretary, so you're responsible for recording and maintaining the organisational records. That sounds very big and grand, but actually it's what you will probably have picked up already naturally, and it's something you don't need to overthink, as it were. So it's about maintaining the membership records, and you can certainly use the FA technology platforms to do that as well. And then just coordinating that day-to-day administration, so organising annual general meetings, management committee meetings, taking minutes, coordinating actions. Hopefully that doesn't alarm anybody. That's kind of very much as you would expect, and hopefully as you're already beginning to kind of get to grips with. Expanding on that then, I'll touch on club governance. First of all, this is something which is probably applies to the higher step clubs within the organisation, within the county. And I'm conscious, I think we've got Newport Pagnell Town on the call this evening, so this is very prescient to you because I know they've just gone through a change of legal structure. Club governance is how an organisation makes decisions and the responsibilities they have to their stakeholders. So as a club secretary, there is a responsibility to know what your governance structure is. For 99% of clubs, it is going to be an unincorporated association, which is a very grandiose term for a member club. It means that you're not a registered company, you're not a registered charity, you don't have any legal responsibilities in that sense, but that you are a collection of like-minded individuals coming together for the same purpose. And so you have responsibility to your members to make sure they know what you're doing, how you're making decisions, and have that opportunity to input into that. As you get kind of further up the pyramid, you may well want to look at the more formal legal structures around being limited by guarantee or registering as a charity. If you do go down that route, that will bring with it additional responsibilities on you as the club secretary around financial reporting. You may have different levels of membership involved. You may have responsibilities about reporting to Companies House or the Charities Commission and so forth. I'm not going to go into any more detail about it now, but if one piece of homework perhaps would be just to confirm what your legal structure is, just so that you know if you've got any additional responsibilities above and beyond what we're going to cover this evening. Moving on then, just a bit more around that role within the club and away from the boring membership side or the kind of administrative side into the football side of it. So as a club secretary, you will handle the football administration. So that will include your annual affiliation to the county FA and the leagues. Hopefully you've already been going through that over the course of the last few weeks. The vast majority of our clubs are now affiliated ahead of the season starting early September. But if you haven't affiliated yet, then by all means, we can feel free to reach out to us and we can pick that up separately. But each year you will have to re-affiliate your teams to the county FA and make sure that or renew your your membership to the various leagues that you participate in. That's a case of kind of confirming which teams are going to be playing over the course of the next season. Linked to that will then be player registrations, making sure that every player that is participating is registered through the FA club portal, and then through that they'll be registered to their league. And I'll show you how to quick check those status of those later on when we kind of do a bit more of a practical demonstration. Once the season starts, then the primary role will be around kind of match day arrangements, and I'll come on to that shortly. But then in terms of football administration, there will be things around processing disciplinary actions if you do pick up any red or yellow cards or misconduct charges. Disciplinary is an entire webinar in itself, and we do have recordings of that on our YouTube page, but I will kind of take you through kind of how to find out what yellow and red cards you picked up, and then how to acknowledge those on the whole game system when we come on to that later. And then finally, it's making sure that you've updates, I should actually say now, club portal with changes to any club or team officials. Part of that is responsibility to us to make sure that we're aware of who is responsible for each team. Particularly when you're looking at youth leagues and youth teams, it's important for us to know that our clubs and leagues have DBS verified coaches and properly trained coaches in place working with children. What I would say within that as well is that if you are a large club, don't feel you have to take this all on yourself. The bottom line there about making sure you have the appropriate support is very relevant. The more teams you have, the more players you're going to have to register each season, the more disciplinary actions that are going to be coming through. And quite quickly, it can almost feel like being a club secretary is a full-time job. What a lot of the larger clubs will do is have or is potentially split male or female or adult and youth responsibilities. And although as the club secretary, you'll still be that primary point of contact, you can then delegate some of those responsibilities for different sections or different age groups down to other supporters or support administrators. Another key aspect as the secretary is that communication. So as I mentioned at the very beginning, as a club secretary, you're pretty much that first point of contact for all queries. So if you're looking at external organizations or individuals that may be wanting to contact the club, they'll be coming through to yourself, potentially around wanting to register as a player, reach out and help out as a volunteer. Transfers, so if it's another club looking to sign one of your players, they'll come to yourself as the secretary. As the county FA, we will always go to you first and foremost with any information from our end around whether that's around affiliation, safeguarding requirements, disciplinary notices, or support with disciplinary investigations and so forth. And then the leagues effectively do the same thing. So one of the important things to do is know who within the club may be picking that up if it's not yourself. So although the key messages may be coming into you as the secretary, that's not to say that you have to do it all. You can then divert that back out again to the relevant person that's picking that up within the club. Within the club, then, you may have similar types of requests around information for membership updates, as I said, the discipline notices, making sure that the correct point of, or correct person's been alerted of any suspensions, that'd be the player and the coach and so forth. Disseminating meeting notes, sending out notices of AGMs and meetings and so forth. And then it may well be that you pick up complaints from time to time. Think of complaints almost like an HR process. If someone comes to you and says they've had an issue with a coach, then it would come through to yourself to then try and work out who the relevant person would be to then take that on. Again, it may well be yourself as a secretary. It could be a club welfare officer. It may well be the chair, but they will likely come to you as that first point of contact. What I would say as well with a lot of this is the relationship between the secretary and the chair within the club is crucial. We do a similar induction session for chairs. I think we're hosting it in a couple of weeks' time. And we talk in that session very much around the role of the secretary and making sure that that relationship is solid and that you're aware as to what can be escalated to the chair, who has the responsibility for different aspects of kind of managing the club. Although as the secretary, you're the primary administrator and that point of contact, and the chair's more of a strategic lead. As you can imagine, those two things very much work closely together to make sure you've got a smoothly operating club. Moving on then just to that relationship with the league, and I feel like I'm repeating myself at this point again about that primary point of contact, but obviously it's slightly different types of communication that'll be coming through to you from a league. Typically, again, the club secretary will be that primary point of contact, even though each team may well have their own administrator or secretary that actually handles the logistics and the coordination of that team itself. Typically, though, the leagues will be coming through to yourselves with notices of any fixtures, registration issues, fines for rule breaches, chasing results, chasing any kind of other issue that may have cropped up or where they're looking for a response from the club. As a secretary as well, you may well be asked to attend the league AGM. And at the league AGM, it's if you haven't been to one before, there's pretty much a standard agenda across all grassroots football. It's written into what the FA call the standard code of rules. But each year, the leagues will hold an AGM, at which point they will elect their officers, approve their finances for the previous season, discuss any rule changes that are going to be coming in for the new year, elect new members, approve the season setup, so kind of which teams are in which division and so forth, and season start dates. Again, depending on the number of teams, you may not want to go to 6, 7, 8 league AGMs that you have, but typically we would always recommend that it is a senior club official that goes to a league AGM. Reason for that being that you've got a bit more of a holistic understanding of the wider landscape. If you say, this particularly probably applies to youth leagues, but if you've got 7, 8, 9, 10 teams participating in a league at different age groups, and the team manager attends, chances are they're going to be primarily focused on the impact on their team, and then maybe have less of an understanding about how rule changes or how league structure is going to affect other teams within the club. So if you have someone that's got that more central role as a club secretary or a club chair, they've got that wider understanding about how those decisions are going to impact all of the different teams that are taking part in that league. Obviously, if it's one team club or one team that participates in that league, you may well want to make a different decision. But as I say, you can pick that up on a case-by-case basis. You may then get different league meetings that crop up from time to time across the season. So they may well call a special general meeting to pick up an issue that's cropped up. They may well want to meet with specific teams if they've had some disciplinary issues. And again, if that happens, it's not unusual for a senior club officer to go along, again, because they can then put a little bit of weight on the team coach or something, or the players if there's been some behavioural issues. So there's some various kind of different meetings you might have to attend throughout the year. Moving on to match day duties then within the league. Again, this is taken from the Standard Code of Rules, which is SCORE, or Standard Code of Rules for Youth Football and Mini Soccer, SCORE, and it's the same across both. So all leagues that you participate in will have this section in it. But effectively, it states that an officer of the home club must give notice of full particulars of the location of and access to the grounds and time of kickoff to the match officials and an officer of the opposing club a certain number of days prior to the match. What that means in reality, again, it's a very wordy way of saying somebody from the home club needs to contact the away club and let them know kind of where they're playing, what the footwear needs to be, if there's any issues around parking or access to the grounds, or what the changing facilities are like. It's a bit of common sense, a bit of courtesy, just to let people know what's going to be what they're coming to when they're a visiting team. Again, 9 times out of 10, that officer is likely to be the club secretary. But again, you may well decide to delegate that down to other people by different age groups, by different formats, and so forth. Normally, you can pretty much get a standard template set up for that, and just shoot that off every couple of weeks or every time you've got a home game. So again, it's not something to overthink or that should take up too much time on a daily or on a weekly basis. But it's an important thing to do. And if you put yourself in the shoes of the visiting club, it's the sort of information you'd want to know for if you were going and playing away. Other match day administrative duties then will include all of the logistics around organising the game. So, if you haven't got your own pitch, it might well be confirming a pitch hire or a booking with the local council or facility provider. Mentioned before about confirming the fixture details. In some youth leagues, particularly at the lower age groups, you might be asked as the home club to appoint an official to the game. And then you need to report the results to the league and provide respect scores after each fixture. Again, where possible, I'd recommend trying to delegate some of those logistics down to team managers or age group representatives. But as a club secretary, it'd be important to make sure that you're copied in on all of those and have oversight or an understanding about everything that's going on. It's also important with some of those to make sure that senior management from the club's involved, because what you may find is that some team managers will look to organise friendlies or pitch hire without thinking of the wider club budget, suddenly racking up the bills, which leaves yourselves as the club secretary or the club management committee in a little bit of a difficult position, as suddenly you're footing the bill or trying to scrabble around and find the funds to cover a manager of an under 10s team that thinks he's the next Guardiola and needs to be training 5 nights a week. Just to talk as well around the appointing officials, mentioned about some leagues asking the home club to appoint a referee. Just thought I'd touch briefly about what happens if that doesn't happen, or if you're not able to find one, or if an appointed referee doesn't actually attend the game. The default is the game should still go ahead. So effectively, the two team managers should be agreeing on an individual to take the game. Again, this mostly happens at the lower age groups where hopefully there's not as much riding on the games and it's less of an issue. But provided both teams agree on an individual, that individual then has all of the rights and responsibilities of a qualified and appointed match official. So it is an important one to bear in mind that if you aren't able to find a referee or the referee doesn't show up, the game should still go ahead. A lot of leagues, both in adult and youth, will also ask both clubs to provide a club linesman. That may well be substitutes that aren't playing. It may well be a assistant manager or so forth. And again, it's just important to be aware of your responsibilities in each individual league as to whether you've got to go ahead and find those officials. Finally, then, just going to come back about that relationship with the county FA. As I said, from our perspective, you are that primary point of contact for pretty much all communication. For those of you who've been in post for 3 or 4 months, you've got all the emails from either myself or from Stacey at the beginning of the summer with all of the affiliation arrangements. You may well have picked up emails from Graham or Rob in our safeguarding team about expiring DBSs. You've picked up emails from John or Kelly with questions around facilities. So they will all be coming into you as that club secretary. Again, whether you want to deal with it yourself or pass on to the relevant person internally as needed, that's up to you. But it's important from our perspective to have that consistent primary point of contact. Reason being, we've got close to 600 clubs that affiliate to Bucks and Bucks. We've got about 5,000 teams. It's not possible or practical for us to keep track within each club as to who's dealing with which type of query. Certainly, there are different roles on a whole game system and club portal to help us, but it's standard practice across all levels of football that you just go to the secretary, and it's then their responsibility to make sure it gets to the right person within that organisation. Many years ago, I was fortunate enough to be working for a national association, and this is very much the same way that FIFA and all of the international confederations work. If they have an issue or if they want to send out communication, it will go to that national association general secretary, and it's for them to make sure it goes on to the relevant person. We also ask that the club secretary assists us with any queries we may have around disciplinary incidents, DBS compliance, or complaints. Hopefully these are few and far between, but chances are for a lot of clubs you may well get an email at some stage for us over the season just asking for a bit of help understanding an incident that occurred at a game. Again, we'll go to the club secretary in the first instance. You're welcome to then kind of point us in the direction of the most relevant person, but it also helps you to keep an understanding about what's happened if that kind of contact all comes through yourself. So those are the 3 core kind of relationships and aspects of the club administration. So it's working with your internal stakeholders and being that point of contact for your members and anybody looking to join the club, that relationship with the league, and then that relationship with the county FA. Before I move on, just to kind of talk through some of the technology systems and run through kind of how those work to help you with the day-to-day administration. If you did have any questions, please feel free to drop them in the chat or use the raise hand function and unmute yourself, and then I'm happy to try and pick that up now, or we can come back and do that at the end. Let's give it a couple of seconds, see if anything comes in the chat, and then we'll move on. Can't see anything. So I'll move on to what is one of the scariest webs of ecosystems of grassroots football technology you'll ever see. The FA have got a lot of technology that kind of underpins everything we do to try to keep football running smoothly. The whole game system, which is kind of in the centre there, is now deemed a legacy system, and so the FA is moving away from whole game into these new club and competition portals, which will form very much that fulcrum of kind of the source of all data for us. From those systems, though, they then interact with the events platform, which supports kind of running just play and recreational sessions and wildcats and so forth. They feed into full time, which is what the leagues use for the administration of their fixtures, and where we get all the records around kind of results, fixtures, appearances, and so forth. Match Day, which is a team administration platform which helps managers communicate with players around training sessions, collect subs and so forth, and then provide data into full time. And then finally, Find Football, which is if you are not currently involved in football, that'd be your first point of contact to join a club. You don't need to worry too much about that. How will they all interact? I just wanted to give that kind of overall map about all of the different terms that you may hear. So the ones that I want to focus on now, though, are two of the three on the screen. These are the ones that you will use most often and kind of form that backbone of our grassroots infrastructure. As I said, whole game system there in the top right in the blue is a legacy system. So the only functionality that is going through that this season will be discipline. So all of the information around red and yellow cards, suspension matches, and so forth. At the end of this season, all being well, discipline will move into the club portal, which was launched about 18 months ago and is now kind of being used for more and more of the administration. It is so much more user-friendly, it is so much more intuitive, visually engaging, the standards we would expect in 2023 for an online platform for an organisation as big as the FA. And then finally, full-time, as I say, is the league administration system that kind of helps us run fixtures on a week-to-week basis. Unfortunately, I can't really do much of a demonstration in full-time today, reason being that we don't actually have access to league unless the leagues appoint us as individuals into it. Because of that, I don't want to go creating dummy fixtures and potentially messing anything up for a league. So unfortunately, I can't do that, but the FA do have demonstrations and run-throughs and a really fantastic support desk and kind of online resources which can take you through how to use full-time. However, I am going to try and change which screen I'm sharing and do a little bit of a practical demonstration of Club Portal whole game system. Right. Hopefully you are all familiar with this through the affiliation process and beginning to do player registrations, but this is the club portal and there's a couple of bits I'm just going to run us through here. Typically, when you log into the platform, you'll land on this main My Club dashboard, which gives us the key information about who's running the club effectively. And this is effectively the public data. So you'll see it gives us the name of the secretary, contact details. If you have separate contact details to the club secretary, you can kind of create the central ones here. It may well be that you don't want your own personal address to be made public. So you want to use the club email address, like a generic support address, and you can put that in here. The key one, though, will be the Make Club Contact Details Public button at the bottom here. This means that the contact details will then be shared onto Find Football. So you'll be able to, or any player or volunteer that's interested in getting involved in a team in your area will be able to find your club, and you may be able to attract some players and volunteers through that way. Across here as well, you've got key information that you can provide if you want to. There's no requirements around sponsors, linked organizations, social media and legal structure and so forth. But again, if you do want to use the platform to its full functionality, it gives you an opportunity to do that. So you're able to keep track of some of that information. I mentioned earlier around the legal structures. If you are incorporated, you may well want to put some of that information on there. It means that all club officers have access to it. If you as a secretary step away, then the new secretary coming in will have all of that information at their fingertips as well. Across the top here, you've also got documentation where you can download FA policy templates. You can upload your own. And again, you may well want to start putting your own accounts on there. It's not a requirement from our perspective, but again, it helps you use this platform as your own central database. You can also update the grounds, which you need to have in there when you're affiliating teams. And then England football accreditation process is done through here as well. So it gives you an opportunity to see where you are against the accreditation checklist, if there's any information you need to do ahead of the renewals next season. Coming down the left-hand side then, coming onto the player tab, again, it gives you the opportunity to see the status of all players that are attached to your club. You can see whether they've been registered with a league. You can use this to allocate them to teams and submit the registrations and so forth. I'm not going to go through and do a practical demonstration of that. Those resources are out there on the FA Grassroots Technology Support Desk. But hopefully you can see this is a really helpful dashboard just to see the status of all of your players. You can trigger through to pending actions, which will allow you to see if there's any actions you need to take to be able to put a new registration through. And you can also add new players through the various options available here, whether that is just by sending your players an email with a link where they can do it themselves, whether you want to send an email invitation out through the system, or you need to manually create a new player for the first time. The Teams tab, again, hopefully you'll be familiar with from affiliation over the last few weeks, but this is something that's been built out over the course of the last couple of months, and it's our first summer using this platform for affiliation, so it changes every now and then. The FA will kind of reformat it based on feedback they're receiving, but through here you should be able to see the affiliation status of all of your teams, which league they're playing in, where it's in standard text rather than bold is the division they're in. You'll be able to see if they've got any county cups, number of players they've got registered and so forth, and use this functionality again. If you do need to create any new teams, you can do it all through this platform. And it probably takes about, once you've affiliated your first team, you can probably create and affiliate a new team with us within about a minute to 2 minutes or so. Through the affiliation platform, you can purchase the insurance, you can pay for it all in one process. So if you are missing teams at this stage, entering new teams into leagues just before they get started, you should be able to get those sorted without having to come to the county office and wait for us to manually process anything now. If there is any reason for us to have to process it manually and invoice you separately, you can find the affiliation invoices in that payments tab at the bottom. Final one I'm going to touch on is just around maintaining the club officials database. Again, I'd really recommend using as much of this as possible and ensuring that all of your volunteers that are working within the club are listed on here. Not only is it really required from our perspective to ensure that we're able to see who is working with the club and make sure that they've got the necessary qualifications for working with children, but actually it gives you an opportunity to, or makes your life easier for managing your volunteers. So the All Officials tab shows everybody that's been added as a volunteer, whether that's in a key club role, whether it's a team role. And then if you come onto the Safeguarding and Qualifications tab, you can then also see the status of any qualifications they've done. It will rag rate them, so you'll know if somebody's DBS is expiring and needs to be renewed, if they've got any safeguarding qualifications outstanding and so forth. It will all show on here. If you do need to add a new official, you've got the blue button up here. And again, you can search for them on our database to see if they're already in here using their names, date of birth, or using their FA number, or you can create them as a new individual if they've never been created or registered on our database before. When you create a new official, you can add them to any team role there and then. What I would say is if you are changing a key official, so secretary, chair, treasurer, or welfare officer, you have to do it through this key official tab. Reason for that being that you can't delete somebody from one of those roles. You must always have a secretary, a chair, treasurer, or a welfare officer. If that person's already on there, you then just need to do the switch official, and you can see you've got all of your other volunteers listed, and you can quite easily change that data instantly. As I said, over the course of the next 18 months or 12 to 18 months, more and more functionality is going to be coming in here, including discipline. What the FA are tending to do is they are tending to release functionality allow people to kind of find it, stress test it, and then they will do a more formal kind of product launch for it. So it's worth kind of keeping up to date with what's on here, clicking around. If you see any new functionality, just have a play with it. I don't think there's anything you can really do that's going to break the system on here. Even with the teams, if you accidentally go into a team and fold them, you've actually got a 14-day cooling off period where you can restore that team. So you're not going to run the risk of accidentally deleting records. You'll always be able to get that information back. In terms of discipline, I'm just going to come over onto the whole game system, which is the other platform that is, as I say, gradually going to get phased out. For those of you who haven't seen whole game before, when you first come onto it, you will land on this horrible looking dashboard from about the 1990s. And it will have, if you've got roles with different clubs and leagues, they'll all be across the top here, but you'll have this main central notification page. This is critical. We've had quite a few club cases over the last season where people haven't seen notifications, or where the notifications have been marked as red and have been missed by other key officers. But anytime a disciplinary case is added, you will have a notification that will crop up on here that will say that case has been added to your club. It doesn't give you any more details than that. But if I'll show you how to find them in a second. But what I'd always recommend is that once you have spotted that notification, once you have processed it, to then mark it as red. This just ensures that all of the latest notifications that are on here are on red ones that need to be actioned. And again, it helps with the managing of the club. As I say, anytime a disciplinary case is added or anytime a case is invoiced, you'll get a notification on this main dashboard alerting you of that. To then find out the information of the case, you come into the club and go to the discipline tab. So discipline tab is just here. It decides to load. There we go. The main tab will give you an overview of number of red and yellow cards for the season for your first team, the non-first teams, and then for the club overall. So you can see that we've created a couple of fake cautions and red cards for our demo club for the purposes of this demonstration. They are both currently awaiting club confirmation and awaiting payment. There's two stages to closing off a disciplinary case. And again, this is something that catches even most experienced of club secretaries out. Every case needs to be acknowledged and every case needs to be paid. And those are two separate deadlines and two separate functions. So a yellow card has to be acknowledged within 14 days of being raised on the system, and a red card has to be acknowledged within 7 days of being raised on the system. Both red and yellow cards then need to be paid within 14 days of the invoice being raised. Again, hopefully when the new system comes in, it will merge all of those and make it a lot more sensible and user-friendly, but it's kind of a legacy from the days of when everything was posted out by mail. But the process for acknowledging cases is actually very straightforward. So we look at this caution here. We've got a caution for BBFA demo adult male. If I click into it, it will give me the key details for that caution. I can see that it was yellow card for unsporting behaviour on the 5th of August, and it's their first caution this season. In order to acknowledge a case, we need to have that player's date of birth and address. And if I click into Mr. BBFA demo adult male, I can see that his address is in there. I can see he's got a date of birth, so I should be able to acknowledge that case. And I'll go back. Click acknowledge up here. Confirm that yes, there's £12 for a caution. And it will then take me back onto this. You can see now that once you've acknowledged it, you can't then change anything. It's been acknowledged, but you should be able to tick at the bottom here and go on to pay the caution fee through the whole game system. Red cards obviously give us a little bit more information because there's slightly more data there around kind of the nature of the offence and the suspensions. So if I come into this for the substitute, again, you'll see the acknowledgement button up at the top here, but it also gives us data around the sanctions that have been imposed. So he's been sent off for a red card for violent conduct. It's going to cost us £55, and he's got a 3-match ban from the 12th of August. Now, suspensions always take effect 7 days from the date of the red card. So sent off on the 5th of August, suspension takes effect from the 12th. And in grassroots football, the suspension is for red cards from that category of football. So this is a Sunday team. So he is suspended from all Sunday football for 3 matches. Now, during that period, the player is actually able to still continue to play Saturday football, midweek football, and so forth. It's only Sunday games that they're suspended from. If it was a suspension result of a misconduct charge, so for slightly more serious offence, then it would apply across all different categories. If you disagree with a red card and believe there's a case for wrongful dismissal, you can use the lodge claim button up here to put that through and submit your documentation and your evidence through to us. There's very tight timeframes for those. So what I would always suggest is if you ever get a red card that you don't agree with, whether it's because the wrong player has been sent from the pitch or because you don't think it should have been a red card, contact us straight away. We'll then be able to give you that information around what that process is, what the deadlines are, what we need from you. And then we'll make sure that it gets heard before that automatic suspension takes effect 7 days later. You'll also see at the bottom here, it will have information about upcoming suspension matches. So let me just acknowledge this quickly. A fine of £40, discipline admin charge of £15 are payable. Okay. There we go. Can't acknowledge case details are incomplete. But if I now go into BBFA demo substitute, it should allow me to edit their information. It's going to be missing. First line of the address is missing. Okay. Right. Update his address. See if this has worked. There we go, quick and easy. So that's how you can edit the details if you do find that you're missing the information. So I mentioned at the bottom here is details around the suspension matches. Now, although I showed that lovely graphic of how all the different platforms talk to each other and the confusing web of grassroots technology, one thing that's never talked to each other, hopefully it will in the new system, is full-time does not give information back to whole game system. So although all of the fixtures for pretty much every league in grassroots football is put through on full-time, that data never came back into whole game to let us know which fixtures a player had to miss to serve a suspension. So continuing this season, if a player does pick up a suspension, you'll need to add the relevant matches through this whole game system. It is a very quick and easy process to do it and to keep track of it. So as I say here, we've got 2 matches. They've already been added, but we know it's a 3-game suspension. So we don't know when that suspension is going to end. But go into the matches tab here. All I need to do is click on the blue new match. I'm going to pick Sunday the 27th. Select the team that the player was playing for when they got sent off. Make sure you've got the right league or cup competition. Select the opposition and create. And if I now go back to that suspension and refresh this properly, you can see that that 3rd match has now been added. Where this is helpful is we now, as a club, will know that which games they're suspended for and when they'll be able to come back and play. If I go on to the main club dashboard here, you'll also see there's up at the very top suspensions and a drop-down arrow. That information is showing here. The suspension is showing as pending because we haven't hit the start date yet. As soon as the 12th of August, that will come up into this current suspension, and we've now got the end date listed. Now, one thing to be careful of with those matches, however, is that any match that is cancelled, postponed, or abandoned does not count towards the suspension. So if you've added a match and then find out for whatever reason it's been abandoned, whether it's due to waterlogged pitch, postponed due to waterlogged pitch or abandoned for whatever reason during the game, you just need to come up and update that information. So let's say that match 27th we put in, suddenly we get hit with some horrible August showers and that match gets postponed. I just come and click it and mark it as postponed. And if I now come back onto that main dashboard, you'll see that that end date has now disappeared. And again, it's really important to try to keep this data up as up to date and as current as possible. There are an awful lot of tools within these systems, but it's only as good as the data that's put in. But if you do keep it up to date, it will help out so much in terms of making sure you're not accidentally playing players under suspension, making sure that club coaches' DBSs aren't expiring, that all of the teams are properly affiliated ahead of the new season, and that all of the players are properly registered. So I'd really encourage you to kind of explore them, make sure you're keeping all of that information as up to date as possible, and then yeah, it will help you out in the long run. I think a lot of this hopefully will get into a relatively quick and easy routine through the season. So although there's a lot of information to take on board now and a lot of work that goes into setting it all up in the beginning, once it's there, it just takes very limited maintenance to keep it all up to date and current. Right, I need to work out how to go back onto my presentation. I'm going to stop sharing that. Go back to sharing. Yeah, that's good. It came back into the right screen as well. Oh no, tell a lie. Right, so that's all the technology platforms and a quick orientation. I appreciate I've thrown an awful lot of processes at you this evening and information, particularly around this kind of technology side. So I just wanted to direct you towards a couple of different support platforms that are in place to help you out. And I put the links to these in the chats, so they should be pinned at the very top. So please feel free to kind of copy those links now. The first is the Grassroots Technology Support Desk, where the FA have created user guides to all of their different platforms. So if you go onto that website, type in a query, what it is you're looking for help with, whether it's international clearance or a dispensation for a player or acknowledging a red card, it will take you through to a walkthrough guide. They've also got video explanations and video walkthroughs as well to help you out with that. It's one of the most essential links I think that anybody can give you in this role. I say that as someone that honestly, I go onto this website several times a day when something has changed or queries come up that I'm not certain on how to resolve it. It's where a lot of county FA staff will find the answers as well. So certainly I'd recommend using that as a first point of call. There will be certain functionalities that you'll have to come to us to resolve. That's absolutely fine. We're more than happy to pick those ones up. But again, this website will kind of direct you to say if it's something that only the county can do on your behalf. In true county FA fashion, we are then looking to shamelessly copy that kind of structure and support desk format, and currently building a what we're calling a support hub, which will look at other aspects of club management. So away from technology, it's slightly more around how to effectively run the club. So things like recruiting players, managing volunteers, accessing all of the different facilities and funding, understanding all of the different FA regulations around discipline and so forth. So we are currently building this and we hope to have it launched around the 7th of September, I think it is, kind of just ahead of that weekend of the 9th and 10th, which I believe is when the vast majority of our leagues are starting. The link is in there, so it's sort of live. It's in progress, but you're welcome to kind of bookmark that link and start exploring and seeing what kind of information's there. Beyond that, as a county FA, we are proud of the level of support we offer to our clubs and leagues. So whether that is through the online resources we've just been talking about, regular CPD and information sessions, very much like tonight. We run these types of sessions throughout the season, covering different topics, in person, online, and try and get a real mix. And then we try and make sure we're providing prompt customer support because we understand how important that is for clubs as well. So generally, we have what we call service level agreements to make sure that 95% of our emails are kind of picked up with or responded to within 2 working days and resolved within 4. Make sure that if an issue crops up at one weekend, that issue is resolved by the next weekend. And typically we're actually hitting about 97, 98% of emails kind of caught within those timeframes. So if you do have any issues, please feel free to drop us a line. And that pretty much covers it from me this evening. I'm happy to do a bit of a Q&A if there's any burning questions which have cropped up across the course of this evening, anything you need support on, getting to grips with the role. But if not, I just want to say thank you very much for joining this evening. And more importantly, thank you for putting your hands up and signing up to be a club secretary. Honestly, we wouldn't be able to kind of run grassroots football, and there would not be grassroots football if it wasn't for the volunteers that kind of help the game and are prepared to put their time and efforts into this. So it is a heartfelt thank you from me and from the County FA for signing up for this role. And if you do have any issues, please do reach out, because that's what we're here for. We're here to help you. We're here to make sure that you get the support you need. So thank you very much.
I've got a question, Alistair. Thank you for your time.
That's okay.
We talk about the suspensions and stuff.
Yes.
And I know you went through it, but I have an outstanding one from last year, so it came over from another club.
Okay.
So it's in our system as a suspension, which has now been served, because I got all the emails through of when he could serve it and listed what we would do for him. But
yes,
I don't think it's up to date in whole game system. So how can I
Okay.
do that now, retrospectively?
Yeah. So when I did that add a match, it does let you pick which season you're doing it for. However, if it was served with games from last season for a different team, then what I would suggest is send that information through to us and we'll add the data.
No, this is so when I looked at this ad match stuff, my concern here was that I wasn't necessarily dealing with suspensions. I was just dealing with fixtures, and pressing on buttons randomly around here might I just didn't want to do it. So yeah, it's for the suspension was picked up from another team, but rolled over into this season.
Okay,
it's
so
for us.
Yeah. Okay. Was it for a different club, or was it the same club and he's just rolled up an age group?
Yeah, different club. Yeah, so this is our first team signing.
Okay.
That he picked up.
Drop us an email. Let us know which club he's joined from and the player's name.
Yep.
What we have to do through the whole game system is we basically do a suspension transfer that sets a date where the player's moved. So up to that date, it will look for his previous team matches, and after that date, he'll look for your matches. The system will look for your matches.
So he's in my dashboard.
So he will be now. But
I've got his case ID, and then I can click on that.
But I don't think the suspension will have transferred across. It's considered a different.
Yeah, it's fine. Maybe it's not for now. We could be probably be here for another 20 minutes, so I don't want to keep the others waiting. But I'll raise a ticket or raise you a mail, and then you can.
Yeah, we'll get that sorted for you. Not a problem.
All right, no problem. Thank you.
Perfect. Well, I don't think there's any other questions. So just want to say thank you again for joining us this evening, and good luck with the new season. If anything does crop up, whether it's those types of suspension issues, or you just want to, I don't know, if anything comes up around how to run the club, by all means, please give us a shout, and we'll be more than happy to help you out with it. Thank you very much, everyone.